The hush that fell over the Supreme Court when Justice Amy Coney Barrett called upon former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi set the stage for an exchange destined to reshape federalism. Debate. In the chamber's lofty confines, Barrett, whose reputation for rigorous textualism and judicial precision has earned her cross-ideological respect since her October 2020 confirmation, posed a challenge that would reveal Bondi's extraordinary command of constitutional doctrine. Justice Barrett's professional pedigree is distinguished. A former Notre Dame law professor and judge on the Seventh Circuit, she has cultivated a reputation for incisive questioning and unwavering adherence to statutory text. Pam Bondi, meanwhile, made her mark as Florida's first female attorney general from 2011 to 2019, building a career on tough prosecutions and political savvy rather than academic acclaim. When she was chosen to lead a coalition of 17 states, in Federation of States v. Department of Commerce, skeptics noted her limited Supreme Court experience. The stakes, however, were immense. The outcome promised to redefine the balance of power between states and the federal government. At issue were federal regulations that the states argued intruded on their taxation and land use authority. A favourable ruling for the states threatened to upend decades of federalism jurisprudence, an opportunity Barrett, as an originalist, could scarcely ignore. And you could scarcely ignore. She commenced her questioning by citing Harrington v. Davis, probing whether Bondi's reliance on that precedent truly aligned with the Commerce Clause's limits. The court listened in rapt attention, expecting Bondi to falter under the pressure. Instead, Bondi responded with unerring precision. She recounted how Harrington withstood scrutiny by satisfying Justice Kavanaugh's three-part test. A demonstrable federal interest outweighing state sovereignty, tailored measures minimizing state administrative burdens, and compelling necessity. She then brought Westmoreland v. United States into play, a 10th Circuit decision later cited in Montgomery v. Louisiana, to illustrate the thin boundary between legitimate federal oversight and unconstitutional overreach. Barrett's poised demeanour gave way to subtle acknowledgement as Bondi reframed the terms of the debate. When Barrett shifted to an Article 3 challenge, invoking Justice Scalia's dissent in Williamson County Regional Planning Commission, Bondi connected that dissent's evolution in Nick v. Township of Scott, a ruling effectively narrowing Williamson on jurisdictional grounds. Her narrative traced how lower courts used Nick to expand property rights jurisdiction, reinforcing her argument that the evolving case law supported the state's position. Other members of the court soon joined the colloquy. Justice Thomas queried the historical underpinnings of federal-state relations, and Justice Kagan pressed on administrative burden considerations. Justice Alito drew a parallel to Texas v. Johnson, a free speech case, but Bondi skillfully distinguished it, noting that Johnson dealt with First Amendment protections rather than structural federalism. Barrett, no longer testing but genuinely engaging, cautioned that wholesale adoption of Bondi's line of argument could constrict the Denison framework that had guided regulatory boundaries for nearly a decade. Bondi countered by invoking Justice Gorsuch's majority opinion in Denison, arguing that its general principles actually endorse context-sensitive approaches. As Chief Justice Roberts reminded counsel of the time limit, Bondi distilled her remaining points with clarity and precision. Barrett interrupted protocol by requesting additional minutes, a procedural courtesy signalling deep engagement rather than simple courtesy. The exchange reached its zenith when Barrett posed a hypothetical scenario so intricate that law students would later see it on constitutional exam questions. Undaunted, Bondi dissected it through 3 constitutional principles, citing precedents Barrett had authored on the Seventh Circuit bench. By the time Bondi entwined Justice Thomas's concurrence in Department of Revenue v. Bucklantock with the limitations outlined in Frere-Edman, the courtroom was visibly captivated. Clerks leaned forward, clerical margins filled with notes, and even the Solicitor General paused mid-transcription, sensing an adversary of rare caliber. News outlets and legal commentators erupted within hours. SCOTUS blog's mid-argument analysis praised Bondi's performance as a tour de force, and commentators across ideological lines concurred. Bondi's mastery of precedent transformed expectations for state advocates. Appalling a Bondi quickly entered legal parlance, denoting those moments when advocates overturn assumptions through doctrinal prowess. 3 months later, the court issued a 6-3 decision, vindicating the states. Justice Gorsuch's majority opinion adopted large swaths of the framework Bondi championed, while Justice Barrett filed a concurrence directly engaging with Bondi's analysis of her previous rulings, in an acknowledgement of an advocate's influence that remains exceptionally rare in Supreme Court history. Bondi's career trajectory shifted overnight. Prestigious law firms courted her for their Supreme Court practice groups, and leading universities offered her visiting scholar appointments to demonstrate her advocacy techniques. Simultaneously, Barrett's intellectual humility was affirmed. At a subsequent Federalist Society panel, she lauded the argument as proof that assumptions can be challenged by advocates from unexpected perspectives, underscoring that judicial rigor demands openness to persuasion. The reverberations extended to courtroom training and education. Moot court curricula were redesigned to include transcripts of the hearing, establishing the Bondi test as a benchmark for aspiring advocates. Within multiple federal circuits, judges began citing the 3-part standard articulated during oral argument, acknowledging that exemplary advocacy can drive doctrinal evolution even before a written opinion is released. In a joint ceremony, the Federalist Society and the American Constitution Society honored both Barrett and Bondi, noting that principled engagement transcends partisan divides. Barrett reflected on the hearing as a clarifying moment that reaffirms our institution's capacity for self-correction through rigorous challenge, and Bondi stressed the advocate's duty to elevate the conversation. Ensuring that foundational principles of federalism are both understood and safeguarded. Mainstream media swiftly followed with profiles of both women. Barrett as the textualist scholar, sculpting modern jurisprudence, and Bondi as the advocate whose meticulous preparation redefined the standard for state challenges. Editorial boards highlighted the hearing as evidence that the Supreme Court flourishes when complex arguments are delivered with analytical rigor accessible to a broader audience. Ultimately, the Barrett-Bondi encounter stands as a testament to the vitality of American constitutional discourse. It underscores how rigorous preparation, commanding knowledge of precedent, and poised delivery can transform perceived limitations into defining strengths. Equally, it reminds jurists that probing questions, when met by unexpected expertise, can spark new pathways of legal thought. The enduring lesson is clear. Genuine progress in constitutional law emerges at the intersection of adversarial rigor and collaborative insight, ensuring that the nation's foundational principles remain both resilient and responsive to fresh perspectives.